$11.9 trillion in assets are scheduled for intergenerational transfer by the end of 2026. This monumental shift in global wealth is colliding with a terminal encryption wall that treats human mortality as a security breach. Approximately 20% of the total Bitcoin supply remains static in unrecoverable wallets, representing nearly 4 million lost units of value. This is not a technical glitch, but the first stage of the Great Wealth Deletion. In 2025, the state of Delaware reported $550 million in revenue sourced exclusively from unclaimed property audits. This process, known as Escheatment, converts abandoned digital balances into state-owned liquidity after short windows of inactivity. Corporate terms of service now function as the primary legal layer, superseding traditional probate intents. The inheritance process is being liquidated by automated scripts before the first court hearing occurs. The adoption of FIPS 204 post-quantum standards by NIST has effectively sealed legacy encrypted estates behind a mathematical event horizon. Without the original biometric or private keys, recovery of these assets is now classified as a computational impossibility. Modern security protocols are designed to protect data from intruders, but they cannot distinguish between a hacker and a grieving heir. The vault does not recognize the concept of a death certificate. Under the 2025 Amazon and Audible terms of service, digital content is explicitly licensed for a single lifetime rather than owned. These assets carry a documented inheritance value of exactly $0.00, regardless of the initial purchase price. Heirs find themselves in a jurisdictional vacuum where 18th century property laws are toothless against 21st century software agreements. The digital library, built over decades, is programmed to vanish upon the final heartbeat. Google's updated 2024 data retention policies mandate the total deletion of accounts inactive for 24 months, including all secondary backups. This automated purge erases the structural evidence of a life before legal representatives can secure access. The digital legacy provisions offered by major platforms often exclude the most critical cryptographic credentials required for asset recovery. We are entering an era of permanent, audited loss, where the system prioritizes security over survival. The Delaware Department of Finance reported $550 million in revenue for the fiscal year ending in 2025, derived primarily from unclaimed property audits. This administrative mechanism, known as Escheatment, targets digital balances that show no verified human interaction within a specified dormancy period. State-appointed auditors now utilize automated scanning tools to identify dormant ledger entries across brokerage platforms and neobanks. The transition from physical safe deposit boxes to algorithmic abandonment tracking has turned civil procedure into a high-frequency revenue stream. The 2025 Coinbase user agreement explicitly mandates the liquidation of accounts deemed abandoned into state treasuries after a window of 36 to 60 months. Once the escheatment process is initiated, the underlying digital assets are converted into fiat currency at the prevailing market rate, stripping the estate of any potential future appreciation. This conversion is irreversible and occurs without the direct consent of heirs, who may be trapped behind two-factor authentication barriers. The legal status of a digital wallet shifts from private property to state-held liquidity based on a countdown timer. Although 47 states have adopted the revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, the legislation remains functionally subordinate to private terms of service agreements. These corporate contracts frequently contain non-transferability clauses that negate the statutory power of an executor or personal representative. In practice, the digital custodian maintains absolute authority over whether to grant access to a deceased user's encrypted environment. The legal framework designed to protect heirs is currently paralyzed by the supremacy of the click-wrap agreement. Internal Revenue Service Form 706, revised for 2024, now demands the reporting of digital asset fair market value at the precise UTC timestamp of the owner's death. This requirement forces executors to provide valuation data for assets they may be technically and legally barred from ever recovering. The disconnect between tax liability and actual asset accessibility creates a secondary financial trap for the estate. A valuation must be declared and taxed, even if the private keys are permanently destroyed or lost to time. Google's 2024 data retention overhaul enforces a terminal deletion of all account data following 24 months of inactivity, including drive archives and photo backups. This automated cleanup script effectively erases the metadata necessary for forensic investigators to locate secondary financial holdings or hidden cryptographic seeds. By the time a probate court issues a subpoena for access, the server logs and primary data structures have often been overwritten by the system. The speed of corporate data hygiene is outstripping the pace of the judicial process. Satoshi Nakamoto's original wallets contain approximately 1.1 million Bitcoin, a sum currently valued at over $70 billion that has remained untouched since 2009. These assets represent a mathematical tombstone, the largest single concentration of wealth effectively removed from the global economy by cryptographic finality. The protocols governing these private keys do not acknowledge bloodlines or probate orders. They recognize only the correct alphanumeric string. In the digital domain, the absence of a key is legally and technically equivalent to the destruction of the asset. Apple's digital legacy program provides a structured path for heirs, but explicitly excludes the iCloud keychain and any licensed media from the transfer. While a designated contact may access family photos, the foundational passwords required to unlock secondary financial applications remain permanently inaccessible. This creates a security paradox, where the digital shell is inherited, but the financial core remains orphaned within the hardware. The biometric wall of the deceased becomes a terminal boundary that no court order can penetrate. The implementation of FIPS 204 post-quantum standards by NIST has elevated this barrier to a computational absolute. These lattice-based algorithms are designed to withstand the processing power of future quantum computers, making legacy brute force recovery techniques obsolete. By securing modern estates with these protocols, we are creating vaults that are mathematically guaranteed to remain sealed without the original credentials. We have moved from a world of pickable locks to a world of absolute mathematical finality. Biometric authentication systems treat the cessation of biological life as a critical security failure rather than a legal transition. A fingerprint or facial map cannot be replicated or subpoenaed once the biological source is no longer viable, and the secure enclave within modern devices is programmed to wipe data after failed bypass attempts. Executors find themselves managing estates where the most valuable assets are locked inside a device that treats them as an intruder. The system's primary function is to protect the data, even at the cost of its permanent loss to the rightful heirs. The collision between ancient probate law and modern encryption has reached a point of total structural misalignment. While traditional courts attempt to interpret the intent of the deceased, automated server scripts proceed with their pre-programmed deletion cycles. The ownership illusion is being dismantled by the reality of the licensing agreement and the finality of the code. We are leaving behind a legacy of encrypted voids, where wealth evaporates into the silent architecture of the network. Subscribe to Leviathan Files. Stay curious, and remember, the truth remains encrypted.